Zoo safety questioned after incident. Toddler injured after hand contact with wolf at Hersheypark Zoo. Parents charged. A shocking incident unfolded at Hersheypark Zoo in Pennsylvania when a 17-month-old toddler was injured after their hand came into contact with a wolf inside the enclosure area. Now it's time to go in detail and uncover the full story in today's AI podcast.
Going to a modern wildlife park, it often feels a bit like stepping into a 3D nature documentary, you know?
Oh, absolutely. It's incredibly curated.
Right, like you stroll down these beautifully paved walkways, maybe you're holding an iced coffee, and you're pointing at these magnificent apex predators that are just a few feet away from you.
Yeah, and you feel totally safe.
Exactly. We assume there's this like invisible shield protecting us. I mean, we trust the architecture, we trust the system. We basically believe we've completely sanitized the experience of raw nature.
We really do. We just assume someone else has handled the danger part.
But so here's the question for today's deep dive. What happens when the barrier between our curated human world and wild animal instinct is just a few inches of metal fencing?
Well, the answer is usually pretty shocking.
It is, and we have a fascinating stack of sources for you today. We're looking at official statements from ZooAmerica, local Pennsylvania news reports, and even some actual records from the Derry Township Police Department.
Yeah, the police reports really add a sobering layer to this whole thing.
They really do. So our mission today is to unpack this genuinely shocking incident involving a 17-month-old toddler, a pack of gray wolves, and basically how the modern illusion of safety can just vanish in a fraction of a second.
It's a perfect example of what happens in that incredibly fragile space where, human engineering meets biological reality.
Right.
To set the scene a bit, ZooAmerica is this 11-acre wildlife park in Pennsylvania. And it houses over 200 animals in these environments that are specifically designed to feel wild and open.
Which is very different from how zoos used to be, right?
Totally. I mean, historically, zoos used iron bars and concrete cages. But today, we use landscaping, moats, hidden fences. It's all to create the illusion that you are standing right inside the habitat.
Like you're walking through the woods with them.
Exactly. But that design choice, well, it lowers our guard. It tricks the human brain into feeling so safe that we honestly often forget we are walking mere yards away from animals that are literally built for hunting.
And that illusion of safety is exactly where this story begins. And it's where the physical breakdown of the park's security becomes so alarming.
Yeah, the step-by-step of it is wild.
So let's look at the toddler's progression here based on the reports. We have a 17-month-old child.
Barely walking steadily, really.
Right. And this toddler manages to navigate through multiple layers of what the zoo considers to be safety measures.
Yep.
First, the toddler slips through this small opening in a wooden safety barrier. Then they enter this designated restricted zone near the wolf exhibit.
Right into the buffer area.
Exactly. And finally, they reach the primary containment, the actual metal chain link fencing that separates the visitors from the animals. And, they push their tiny hand right through it.
And, what's fascinating here is the zoo's official clarification on that sequence. It's actually vital to understand.
How so?
Well, the child never fully entered the actual enclosure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were always physically on the outside of the primary containment fence. Their hand simply crossed that critical boundary.
Just the hand.
Right. But it shows that the reliance we place on things like restricted zones is just a massive blind spot in public safety design.
Because it's not a real wall.
Exactly. From an engineering standpoint, a restricted zone is just a physical buffer that relies entirely on a social contract.
Right.
A wooden rail or a sign says, do not cross.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of the time, the adult human brain registers that rule and complies.
Okay, wait. I have to push back on that logic a bit because a 17-month-old doesn't understand social contracts.
No, of course not.
I mean, they can't read warning signs. To a toddler, a wooden barrier with a gap isn't a restriction. It's a playground obstacle course.
An invitation to climb.
Exactly. So if the metal fence is right there and a toddler can just literally toddle through the wooden one, are these outer barriers actually designed to keep the animals in or the people out?
Oh, they're entirely designed to keep people out. But they are psychological barriers masquerading as physical ones. The primary heavy-duty metal fencing is the robust containment keeping the predator inside. The secondary wooden barriers are really just polite suggestions.
Light suggestions. I like that phrase.
Yeah, they basically act as a deterrent for adults and older kids who understand societal rules. But you are pointing out the fatal flaw in the system here.
That it doesn't account for toddlers.
Right. These environments are engineered for compliant adults. They are definitely not impenetrable fortresses against a curious, highly mobile toddler.
It reminds me of, the painted double yellow lines on a highway?
Oh, yeah. That's a great comparison.
Right. Like we all collectively hallucinate that a stripe of yellow paint is a concrete wall keeping us from oncoming traffic. But physically, it's just paint.
It's nothing.
Yeah, we are relying entirely on mutual agreement to stay alive. And the wooden barrier at the zoo is basically just the yellow paint.
That analogy perfectly captures the dynamic. The zoo provides the structure, but the safety only exists if everyone plays their part. When a toddler breaches that psychological barrier, well, the painted line disappears, and they are suddenly face-to-face with the reality of the primary containment.
Which brings us to the terrifying reality of what was actually waiting on the other side of that middle fence. Because obviously, that toddler wasn't just reaching into an empty patch of grass.
No, definitely not.
The exhibit is the habitat for 3 gray wolves. And our sources identify them specifically as a male named Twister, who was born in 2015, and 2 sisters, Hazel and Freya, born in 2019.
And the presence of those specific animals, it really shifts the entire context of the toddler's actions.
How do you mean?
Well, the source material highlights a detail about these wolves that is so essential to understanding this incident. It's their incredible natural camouflage.
Oh, right. The sources mention that.
Yeah. Visitors regularly mistake them for rocks. They blend in so perfectly with their surroundings that, a toddler reaching toward the fence might not have even registered that an animal was there.
Wow. I am still kind of stuck on that camouflage detail. You have a child reaching for what looks like a warm rock, but it's actually an apex predator.
Exactly.
So let's talk about the biology here for a second, because I think people forget these aren't just big, fluffy dogs, right?
Oh, far from it. These are serious carnivorous predators. In the wild, their diet consists of massive, powerful prey. We are talking about elk, deer, bison, and moose.
Bison, that's huge.
Yeah, they take down huge animals. And even their smaller prey involves exceptionally fast, evasive animals like rabbits and beavers.
So they are built to react quickly.
Exactly. To hunt successfully, a gray wolf is hardwired to detect incredibly subtle movements, to blend into the brush, and to react with lightning-fast speed before their prey can even escape.
And that biological hardwiring really completely explains what happened next. Because when the child's hand came through the metal links, the authorities stated that one of the wolves approached and, quote, instinctively and naturally grabbed the toddler's hand.
And, the specific terminology used by the Derry Township Police Department and the zoo officials there is fascinating.
The way they phrased it.
Yes. They explicitly avoided calling the interaction a bite. And they really went out of their way to clarify it was not an act of aggression.
I have to say, I found that distinction confusing at first.
Sounds like corporate spin, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because if an animal's teeth make contact with a person, our immediate instinct is to just call it an attack. Why are the authorities so insistent on not using those words?
Because calling it an aggressive attack misrepresents the animal's biological reality. If we look at how a wolf, or really any canine, interacts with its environment, we have to remember they don't have hands to explore the world.
Right. They use their mouths.
Exactly. They use their mouth. So this was a startle reflex combined with predatory curiosity. When something suddenly enters their space, especially something small and moving at eye level, the instinctual response is to investigate it orally.
It makes me think of, like, a friendly domestic dog. Like, if you make a sudden, unexpected movement near a golden retriever snout, even the absolute sweetest dog might instinctively snap at the air or grab your hand without any intent to hurt you.
Right, because it bypasses the thinking part of their brain entirely.
Exactly. It's just a raw reflex.
And that is the exact mechanism at play here with the wolf. The wolf wasn't acting maliciously. It didn't launch some coordinated offensive. It just reacted to a sudden stimulus in its environment, the only way millions of years of evolution have programmed it to react.
But the contrast there is just staggering. We are talking about a creature whose jaws possess the bite force necessary to take down a 1,000-pound bison.
It's immense power.
Right, and it clamped down on a tiny 17-month-old's hand. Yet, miraculously, the authorities reported the injuries as only minor.
Which is incredibly lucky.
It really highlights how fortunate the situation was. If that wolf had fully engaged its predatory drive or perceived the child as actual prey rather than just a curiosity, the outcome would have been unspeakably tragic.
Without a doubt.
It was really just a fleeting instinctual test.
Yeah, the animal behaved exactly as a wolf should. The failure in this scenario was not on the part of the predator acting on instinct, and it wasn't the toddler acting on curiosity.
Right.
The real failure occurred in the space between them.
Which brings us to the biggest question. If the child was at the metal fence and the wolf was doing what wolves do, where were the guardians?
This is where the story shifts.
Yeah, the immediate aftermath of this incident is incredibly revealing about human behavior. Because when the wolf grabbed the child's hand, it wasn't the parents who jumped in to intervene.
It wasn't them at all.
No. Bystanders, complete strangers who were simply visiting the zoo saw what was happening, and they rushed in to pull the toddler away before things could escalate.
And bystanders acting as the primary rescue is a glaring indicator of a severe lapse in supervision.
Absolutely.
The police details paint a very specific picture of the parents here. Carrie B. Sorter, who is 43, and Stephen J.B. Wilson, 61. They were seated on a bench approximately 25 to 30 feet away from the toddler.
And what were they doing?
The critical factor is that they were entirely focused on their mobile phone.
We really need to visualize that distance for a second. 25 to 30 feet. If you're sitting in a living room, that's just across the house.
Not far.
No. If you're at a playground, it's just over by the swings.
I keep asking myself, is a physical distance of 25 feet really the danger here? Or is it the massive attention gap created by those screens?
Oh, the attention gap is the true culprit here.
Yeah.
Yes, because when we look down at a smartphone, our brains suffer from a well-documented neurological phenomenon. It's called inattentional blindness.
Inattentional blindness.
Right. We can be physically present in a location, but our visual cortex is so consumed by the bright, rapidly changing stimuli on the screen that it literally stops processing peripheral information.
Wow.
You could have a marching band walk past you, and if you are deep into a scrolling session, your brain might not even register it. That's terrifying. But think about the last time you were texting on a park bench. You probably felt like you were still keeping an eye on your surroundings.
Right. You always feel like you are.
Yeah, you assume you'd notice if something was wrong. But neurologically, your brain is treating the physical world like it's just background noise.
Exactly. The parents basically assumed the zoo's architecture was doing the babysitting. And because of that inattentional blindness, they missed the entire sequence of events.
They missed everything.
They didn't see the child approach the wooden barrier. They missed the physical breach of slipping through the gap. They missed the walk across the restricted zone.
And a 17-month-old can cover 25 feet surprisingly fast. But it still takes time.
It takes plenty of time to notice if you're looking up. But the parents' situational awareness was completely severed in an environment that demands vigilance.
The juxtaposition is absolutely chilling to me. On one side of the metal fence, you have the raw, life-or-death reality of a carnivorous predator governed by survival instincts. And on the other side, separated by just inches of metal and a short paved walkway, you have the most mundane, modern manifestation of distraction: scrolling on a phone.
It's two completely different worlds.
Yes. The parents are existing in a completely digital universe, assuming the physical world is paused or being managed by the zoo staff. Meanwhile, their toddler has wandered into a primal universe where there are no refresh buttons and no do-overs.
And the legal consequences really reflect society's complete intolerance for that specific type of distraction.
They were charged, right?
They were. The Derry Township Police, coordinating with the Dauphin County District Attorney's Office, charged both parents with 1 count each of misdemeanor endangering the welfare of a child.
That legal charge is a heavy statement. The law is essentially drawing a line in the sand, saying you cannot delegate your parental supervision to the landscaping of a wildlife park.
Well, the institution provides guardrails to assist supervision, not replace it. The expectation is a baseline of situational awareness. But when that awareness fails, we naturally look to the institution to see how they respond.
Like, what did the zoo do wrong?
Right. Do they change the environment to compensate for human error?
Because that is always the immediate public reaction after an incident like this. People shout, the zoo needs to do more, build a higher fence, close all the gaps.
Yeah, that's the knee-jerk reaction.
But ZooAmerica took a very different approach here. After conducting a full review of the incident, their conclusion was incredibly measured.
It was.
They reaffirmed that their multiple safety barriers and clear signage are actually sufficient. They didn't announce massive structural overhauls at all.
And their response is deeply rooted in the physical reality of the breach, because structurally, the primary containment held.
The metal fence?
Right. The metal fence did its job. The animal did not escape the enclosure. The wooden barrier did its job too. It clearly marked a boundary for anyone actually paying attention.
So they put the responsibility back on the visitor.
Exactly. The zoo placed the emphasis exactly where it belongs in this context, on the need for guests to stay in designated areas and maintain close supervision of children at all times.
Which makes sense. I mean, you can engineer a physical space to be 99% safe. You can install heavy-duty metal fencing. You can construct thoughtful buffer zones.
But you can't engineer out human nature.
Exactly. You can never engineer away that final 1% of human unpredictability, especially when smartphones are involved. We rely on infrastructure so heavily that our natural threat detection systems just go completely dormant.
Yeah, when we enter a zoo, our brains categorize it as a safe entertainment venue, much like an amusement park or a movie theater.
Oh, that's so true.
We forget that the exhibits are fundamentally different from a roller coaster. A roller coaster is a predictable machine on a fixed track.
Right. It does the exact same thing every time.
But a wolf is an autonomous living predator. Our failure to respect that distinction, combined with the cognitive load of digital distraction, is what creates these terrifying vulnerabilities.
We just assume we are untouchable observers in that 3D documentary, but the glass, the fencing, the moats, they only work if we maintain our situational awareness.
Holding up our end of the social contract means remaining present. It means recognizing that the barrier is only as effective as the respect we give it.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a thought to chew on. We've explored the psychology of safety barriers, the incredible biological instincts of a gray wolf, and that terrifying attention gap created by a smartphone screen.
It's a lot to process.
It is. But look at the broader implications for a second here. If heavy wooden barriers, clearly marked restricted zones, thick metal fencing, and obvious warning signs aren't enough to protect a curious toddler from a pack of wild predators when screens are involved, what does that say about our society's dangerous assumption that the system will always step in to protect us the moment we decide to look away?
Okay, one question for you. How did a 17-month-old toddler manage to bypass safety barriers at Hersheypark's ZooAmerica? And are existing protections truly sufficient for preventing such dangerous situations involving young children? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.